Good evening, Sean here. How are you doing tonight? It's like about minus 30 out in Calgary, so I think a lot of us are sort of cooped up and trying to stay out of the wind at the very least. Um, yeah, anyways, I actually kind of like it when it's cold like this. It kind of feels good, kind of feels good on your skin. Um, Makes you feel alive, you feel it in your bones. Get home from work, have a nice hot shower, kind of curl up with a book or do a little workout indoors probably if you're a little soft like me. Not tough enough. I used to run out in all weathers down to like minus 40, but not so much anymore. Anyways, I just want to sort of spitball with you guys here about sort of a phenomenon that I guess I'm seeing, and I think it's sort of interesting nowadays. It's sort of funny, we live in a time when there's never been more choice in terms of culture, the culture that we can consume. I mean, there's a million different YouTube channels. There's a huge amount of stuff on Netflix, Hulu. What are the other online providers? HBO, is making stuff more or less for online now. And then there still is the TV programming, which does anyone watch? I think people mostly just watch for sports. There's a few shows I guess people are sort of into on your cable TV or your local networks. But even the news on those is really, really boring and slow, isn't it? And they always talk about really irrelevant stories. I don't know how they're picking their stories. It always seems really kind of quaint and a little out of date. Anyways, but the thing I was sort of thinking about that I think is funny is that even though we have this huge amount of diversity, doesn't it feel sometimes when you're out looking at the internet or looking at what you're seeing on TV or at TMZ or something, that even though we do have all this choice, it seems like the trends are even narrower and tighter and move faster than they ever have before. So it's sort of there's a bit of a contradiction here in that there is this huge unmatched amount of choice, yet people seem to be reading the same things and thinking the same things more than ever. I'll give you an example. So during the shutdown, the Democrats were down at Puerto Rico, and where did I read this? That they were all going to see a show of Hamilton down in Puerto Rico. Anyways, I thought that was sort of funny. Or here's another one. Just the sheer, let's just say, not even take that as a literal example, but just say, what about the total euphoria that was over Hamilton, where it was that must-see thing in New York, and all the Washington types were raving about it, and everyone was raving about it on Twitter. Or here's another example, Game of Thrones. That's like a few years ago at least, that was the number one office water cooler topic in the world. Yeah, so anyways, it is just sort of an interesting paradox because I think that, we have access to all this different media and this different thought to consume, yet we're narrowing ourselves more than ever. And the funny thing about that is that I think that, that plays into this sort of weirdly siloed tunnel vision that you see in the media sometimes, where they're all following each other on Twitter, and they're all singing the praises of Hamilton, and they're all saying Trump is a Russian spy or something totally ridiculous, or what else are they doing? No one could even see Trump's path of victory. Only a few people could. They were all hopped up on this thing. Oh, Hillary's going to win, 100%. There's a lot of YouTube videos you can watch that show that the horse with blinders on here, looking dead ahead, and no real feeling for probability or statistics. Like there's the one, who was the guy, Jonathan Chait? I don't want to say who it was if I don't know, but there was one of, I believe, a Hillary aide who said that, it was 100% chance of her winning. And I mean, come on, it wasn't a 99% chance. At least a 99% chance I would listen to, but these guys got a little absurd. Anyway, so I think that there's a value if you are willing to do it, to distinguishing yourself by watching something different or reading something different than your peers. Um, we don't all have to be watching Stranger Things or the Bundy show. And so I guess the paradox there is that, yes, you want to be able to participate in sort of the cultural conversation, but you don't want to be sucked right into it to the point that you become an unthinking consumer of content, when you could be mixing it up with a little of column A, a little of column B. And I watched about half of the Bundy show on Netflix everyone's talking about. It's a huge thing. It's a pretty good show. But I think that there's a value there to being able to get off the beaten path more than ever, frankly. Even though it's easier to get off the beaten path than ever, less people are doing it. And so, and then here's the other paradox. So if I had a huge platform and I told people what to watch or what I thought would be a good way to get themselves off the beaten path, then that potentially could make their own beaten path. So rather than say, read what I'm reading, watch what I'm watching, think what I'm thinking, do woodwork for fun, lift weights for fun, what I say is do whatever you're curious about, don't limit yourself, and don't be afraid to try something new. Hope that didn't come on the video. And I was just actually talking with a young kid today, a friend of mine, who's applied to a bunch of law schools. He's gotten to a bunch, so now he's got to make a choice. And he sort of has some thoughts on what area he'd like to practice. And the one thing I told him was, that's great, but don't limit yourself. Like, for myself, I thought that I was sort of slated out to be a solicitor. That is what I did wind up doing, but I wound up with some experience at litigation, and even though I was very afraid of it, I can admit this, okay, because I'm honest to you, I was afraid of it, but I went ahead and I did it, and I felt like I had been almost selling myself short by saying that you can't litigate, because I think that I did fairly well for the litigation that I had done to date. So don't sell yourself short. The sky's the limit. I believe in you, even though I don't know necessarily who you are. So go out, explore, discover, have fun, and drop me a line in the comments with what you've got up to or what you've discovered, because I'm happy to hear that. We can sort of build this thing and flush this thing out together. Anyways, so happy trails to you as you go and sort of explore this wonderful world we have. Get off the beaten path of Stranger Things, and what else is sort of a cultural touchdown? The Avengers, the Marvel movies. I mean, you kind of do have to keep an eye on those things just so that you're not too much of a hermit. But why don't you get out some Yeats? Why don't you read some Frank O'Hara? Why don't you look at some art? I'm really into Peter Bruegel right now, and I was into Hopper for a while there. I was always tweeting those out and really loved looking at those beautiful, beautiful art. So sky's the limit. Get out there, have some fun, drop me a line. Thank you, and have a good night.